guys, welcome back to the channel. So the IBA have confirmed that Imane Khelif and Ting are in fact male with XY chromosomes. And the Trust the Science crowd are deeply offended. They want us to ignore the big fat Y in the room. And it appears some of the journalists were unable to understand what members of the International Boxing Association were saying. Not because English wasn't the first language for some of them, but because they used the word male.
I try to say that the medical result, lab result, looks and see the laboratories that this boxer is male.
We had Dr. Polonis Flipatos, an OB-GYN and a former chair, stress that changing your passport doesn't make you female. So Imane has progressed to the finals and is going for the gold, guaranteed a medal. Imane beat Janjaim Suwanafeng to progress to the final to go for the gold, and Khelif won by unanimous decision. So before the fight, Suwanafeng sounded fairly confident despite having lost to Khelif in the past. She lost to Khelif at the 2023 World Championships before the disqualification. She said, "I've improved since then and I'll fight with all I've got. I've looked into it too, about her hormones, and I know she's lost to female boxers before, but that was a long time ago. I'm not sure if she's got stronger or if her male hormones have increased. But if we meet again, I'm not afraid because we're evenly matched. I've prepared my body well too, trained a lot. I just think no matter how strong or tough, we're both human, we both have two fists. Having come this far, I want to go all the way to the gold medal." So she didn't win, but she is guaranteed a bronze medal. And her place has been taken by a male athlete. I wonder how she feels about that. So Khelif spoke out and said that talk of all this, chromosomes, XY chromosomes, is nothing but bullying.
أنا نوجه رسالتي لكامل شعوب العالم أنهم يكونوا متمسكين بالمبادئ الأولمبية حسب الميثاق الأولمبي وابتعاد عن التنمر على جميع الرياضيين لأنه هذا الشيء ويأثر كثير وكثير.
The IBA confirmed that tests were done on Khelif and Ting at an event in Istanbul in 2022 and again at the 2023 World Championships in New Delhi. And some people were questioning why there was such a long time between tests. The fact is they wanted 2 tests to verify the findings. They wanted more than 1 test to be done.
So on the 17th of May 2022, the the blood tests were taken by a lab known as System Tip Laboratory in Istanbul. We can give the license numbers out so you'll be aware of that, and the results from there were issued on the 24th of May. Okay. The tests were taken and the results, I'm going to discuss this shortly, the results that were brought out were inconsistent. So further to which there's been a number of questions as to why, but we came about to the next female championships was taking part in 2023. So there is a time gap, but the reason for that is because we wanted 2 tests. So there's 2 tests required, not 1, but 2 tests, time gap between, and then to the next World Championships, which was taking place in India. Okay, so we go to the female World Championships that took place between the 15th and 26th of March. Both boxers entered the championships, and at which point, on the 17th of March 2023, both boxers were asked to take a further blood test. That happened, and on the 23rd of March, the results came through, and it demonstrated the chromosomes that we refer to within the technical and competition rules that make both boxers ineligible. and that was then further ratified by the BOD, our Board of Directors. It was taken there to remove both boxers from the championships. That was on the 26th of March 2023.
So there were a lot of different reactions to the conference. We had the IOC say that the tests were flawed. We had people saying that the whole thing was a shambles. It went on for like 2 to 3 hours. And we had journalists walk out, and we had news publications cut their feed, their live feed. So people wanted them to actually publish the test results. And the IBA said they can't do that for privacy reasons. But they were able to show some proof that the tests themselves were done, that the tests were ordered.
And within that document, and we'll let you see these documents, there is an attached referral to the blood tests that were taken. Okay, we're not in a position, due to non-disclosure and medical in confidence, we're not able to give you the actual blood test itself, but what we can show you is the front cover copy with the annex, which we'll put up on show shortly to indicate what that was, and a signature on the bottom of both documents by both boxers who received those blood tests accordingly.
So Mark Adams of the IOC said, those tests are not legitimate tests. The tests themselves, the process of the tests, the ad hoc nature of the tests are not legitimate. The testing, the method of the testing, the idea of the testing, which happened kind of overnight, none of it is legitimate, and this does not deserve any response. Well, the tests are legally binding, especially as the results of the tests were not contested. So the journalists who walked out, some of them were from the BBC, others were from Reuters, and Reuters cut their feed. They're insisting that everything is illegitimate, but allowing males to compete in female competitions to them seems to be legitimate. So they don't have a very good idea of what the word means. So Oliver Brown of The Telegraph said the following about the IOC's response. So this is the crux of it, that 2 fighters are guaranteed at least bronze medals in the women's boxing have been determined by the IBA according to the results obtained at a laboratory to have XY chromosomes, the male pattern. And if the sanctity of the female category is to mean anything, sports should ultimately be XX versus XX. The IOC airily waves this notion aside, claiming it is sufficient for womanhood to be defined by passport status. It also counsels against a return to the quote-unquote dark days of sex testing, even if a growing number of female athletes would be happy, and I'm sure they would be, if it meant avoiding the debacle of recent days to see simple cheek swabs restored. The fact is, the IOC allows males to compete in women's categories. Their policy allows it and gives permission to national governing bodies to allow it too. They will not stand in the way if a national governing body deems it appropriate for a male to be in a women's competition, whether it's identity or DSD. So the World Athletics allows athletes with DSD to compete in a women's category. They recently made their rules more strict, allowing them to compete in certain events from 400 meters to 1 mile, but it's a requirement that they take medication to lower their testosterone. Semenya isn't competing at the Olympics this year because I guess Semenya didn't like the options, either to take medication or run a lot further, than usual, because Semenya's event, I believe, is 800 meters and 1500 meters. So, that would have required the person to become a long distance runner, further than 1500s in order to compete without having to lower the testosterone, which I don't really understand the premise of that rule because that doesn't make the person female.
The medical terms, what they tell me, my testosterone, being born, without the uterus, being born with internal testicles, those don't make me less a woman. It's just the differences that I was born with, and I embrace them.
But if World Athletics had no restrictions whatsoever, the IOC would be fine with that, because they're letting the NGOs make up their own rules. So if they just straight up said, a dude can compete in a women's category with no lowering of testosterone, no rules, the IOC would be okay with that. So of course they're not going to kick up a fuss about these 2 male boxers. The fact is, they don't care about the effect on women. They don't care about keeping women's sports safe and fair. They couldn't care less. All they care about is their idea of inclusion. But the chief of the IBA, that some like to point out that the person is Russian, apparently that's something to point out, but okay, said the following: the tests show they were men. We don't verify what they have between their legs. We don't know if they were born like that or if some changes were made. So the IBA do not purport to know the intimate details of Khelif's anatomy, but a lot of people on X claim to know. How they know, I do not know. But they were making all sorts of claims. Claims of a uterus, claims that this person has the ability to carry and give birth. For some reason, they have access to this information when it hasn't even been released. So those who walked out, and the IOC, they couldn't care less that these boxers are male. If they were trans, if they identified as trans, the result would be exactly the same.
Firstly, there's a lot of confusion in the reporting around this. Obviously, there have been some cases in the past where women born as women have naturally high testosterone levels, and sometimes there have been cases where it's transgender women. Do we know which it is in this case?
It's never about naturally high testosterone levels in women. When they talk about females with these high testosterone levels, they're really talking about males with disorders of sex development. And in some cases, rarely happens in developed countries, but in some cases, babies born with these disorders are wrongly labeled as female, and then they grow up and go through male puberty, and everyone then knows they're male. They have, I don't know these 2 individuals in particular, but this is well documented now, for example, with Caster Semenya, that they have internal testes, they produce testosterone, they go through puberty, they have all those advantages. And frankly, the prospect of these people boxing against women, if they are male, is terrifying. And we should be very concerned. And the IOC should be very concerned, but seemingly they are not.
Fiona, I've got some statistics here that say that men have a 90% increased bicep strength and 162% greater punch power, meaning that the average man's punch has 2.6 times the force of one delivered by a woman. Are the Olympic Committee putting women's lives at risk?
I think there can be no doubt they're putting women's lives at risk. But bear in mind that this is their stated policy. They have said that there should be no presumed advantage for trans-identifying males, what they call transgender women, or for people with differences of sex development, which is what we believe applies here. What that means is they are saying that if you're male, but you say that you're a woman, that's what they think is important.
And this guest goes on to say that being the same height, being the same weight, doesn't take away the advantage. This is a safety issue, first and foremost, even before we get into the issue of fairness. While it's important to have compassion for anybody dealing with such conditions, these male athletes are choosing to compete against women, knowing that they have a completely different body. These male athletes are choosing to be in a competition where the aim is to knock the other person out. They're willing to knock out women in order to win. Where's the compassion there? Instead of getting mad at the messenger, you need to take it up with science, because chromosomes do not lie. So let me know what you think. Thanks for watching. Take care of yourselves. Like, comment and subscribe. And God willing, I will see you in the next video.